I think I'm a hoarder. Hey everybody, and let's get all these out of here real quick so I can actually see you guys. Hey everybody, welcome to GTech, and if you're like me in the sense that you like buying used hardware on your local used markets, you probably have an abundance of it sitting around. Believe me, this isn't even half of what I have. And sometimes when you buy these used parts, you obviously gotta test them and make sure that they work, right? And that's easy enough. You can just, set up a very basic test bench on top of your motherboard box like this, but who wants to do this? This looks bad and janky, and then you got cables and stuff hanging around everywhere. And plain and simple, it's just kind of dangerous. Dangerous in the sense that any exposed PCB is prone to being able to be, touched and poked around and fingers getting caught in fan blades. And next thing you know, you've got mincemeat made of your fingers. Now, there's plenty of actual dedicated test benches out there, but those are expensive, plain and simple. Essentially, just having a platform to build on for a couple $100 sometimes, that's a lot of money. Why would you spend over $100 for an open bench table, which is premium metal construction and properly machined spacing to fit your hardware exactly, when for $20 you can buy a computer case that looks like it was sitting in someone's flooded basement for the better part of a decade and came shipped to you with dead bugs in it? I think that's the more cost-effective solution, so I went that way because I'm a poor broke college student. First, I needed to source a donor case for this project. One day I just randomly hopped on eBay to see what I could find, and I came across this old thing, an Antec 900. I offered the dude $5, he said sure. It cost me more money to have it shipped to my house than I bought it for. Complete with cobwebs and filled with rust, this thing looked like it hadn't seen sunlight since it was manufactured in 2006. It was perfect. Now that I had a donor case in hand, step one of the process is actually designing the darn thing. I knew I didn't want the test bench to look so bare bones that it was obviously made out of scrap materials, but I also didn't want it to be so ridiculously overbuilt that it would be an intimidating eyesore that scares away small children. Looking around online for custom test bench ideas, and I found this video from GTech on YouTube, and it was exactly what I had in mind for my own bench. Now, the big difference between his and my test bench to be is that he ended up using an old OEM case from HP, and many pre-built PCs nowadays are micro ATX, but I wanted the ability to be able to use standard ATX boards. So great! We've got a plan for how this thing should look and a donor case to harvest the parts from. We can finally start taking it apart, but this case is in rough shape. It did not live a good life. So before I go chopping it apart, it's gotta have a proper send-off. We are gathered here today to celebrate the life of this Antec 900 case. Didn't have a good life, and I don't know what kind of hardware that it housed, but you can clearly tell that it's complete with a punched out side panel, broken fan blades, and literal rust damage. But I know that this case lived a life full of purpose, making one gamer very, very happy. But today, this case is going to be reborn. It will be given a second shot at life. It will be reborn to house brand new hardware. It'll be given a second chance. Okay, who wants lunch?
Let's go! Who drove?
Forget that, let's kill this thing. So I busted out the drill, pierced through all the rivets, yanked the motherboard tray out, and bada bing bada boom, we got ourselves a piece of sheet metal. Now this thing is absolutely huge, and I don't need the whole thing, I just need the area with all the standoffs on it. I figured I'd also keep these cable management holes just for some easy cable routing. So we pulled out the Dremel, hacked, slashed, and cut it away, and there we go, we've got ourselves a smaller piece of sheet metal. The same process goes for the back frame of the case so that I could have proper alignment on the rear I/O, so a few rivets got the two pieces stuck back together. But I didn't just want some lame piece of metal sitting around. I wanted this thing to look like a showpiece. I rummaged around in my shed for a bit and I found some 1x3s, a sheet of plywood, and an old piece of material from my woodshop class that would go great for building the frame. Now, I'm incompetent when it comes to power tools and didn't want to chop my thumbs off, so I called in the big guns, my dad. He and I sat down and drew up some actual plans for this thing with proper measurements and angles, fired up the table saw, and soon enough all of our wood pieces were done. After drilling all the holes that we would need in each of the wood pieces, the hard part is done, so all that's left is to get it all stuck back together. Easy enough, we've got some wood screws laying around the garage. I picked up a can of hammered black spray paint from Home Depot for all of the metal pieces, and I used some dark stain on all of the wood pieces, which was left over from redoing the mantle in our living room, and I think it turned out really good. So now that all of our individual pieces are in their final configuration, it's finally time to put this thing together. I drilled some holes into that thin sheet of wood where the motherboard standoffs would sit, allowing us to connect the two. Then we attached the side pieces for the frame to the base, followed by the motherboard tray, which would float on top. And with just a few extra wood screws, we were done. It's honestly hard to believe we made something that went from looking like this to something that looks like this. So plain and simple, I absolutely love how this thing turned out. It looks fantastic. You know, aside from the cables that are just kind of running everywhere, the actual design looks great. I love how the wood stain turned out, and I think, you know, painting this metal piece right here really helps kind of give it a nice earthy, dark theme to it. Now, the hardware that's on here is definitely prone to change. This is just some hardware I had laying around that I figured, you know, it would help demonstrate how easy it is to work in this thing. So as you can see, we've got a, you know, 3-fan Strix GTX 1080 and this absolutely massive Noctua NHP1. I am going to be making a review of that, hopefully. But overall, everything just came together so well. Now, there are a couple things that I'm only just now realizing. For one, where can I mount a radiator for an all-in-one liquid cooler on this thing? There's no mounting places for that. So I'm probably just gonna have to, you know, let it sit on the table or whatever. Maybe just leave it right here. Maybe I'll fix that in a version 2 of this case or something like that. Same thing with 2.5 and 3.5 inch drives. There's no mounting anywhere for that. Maybe I'll just find an old hard drive cage and I'll, you know, rivet it to this wood piece or whatever, screw it on down. But you know, I'm not gonna be like selling this thing. I'm not planning on mass producing them. So those are features that I myself can worry about in the future. I'm not too concerned about that. But you know, that's just about gonna do it for now. So if you like this video, you know what to do. And if you wanna see more videos like this, make sure to get subbed down below because I love making this stuff for you guys. And as always, have a good one. Honey,